In a fish room with over a dozen tanks and over 100 fish, I learned that there's a million ways to do just about anything. But some ways are better than others. For example, let's take a look at this tank, or this tank, or this tank. Now, what do all three of these tanks have in common? One, they're all filterless. All three of these fish tanks have no filter. They're able to run just by the ecosystem that I created in each and every single one of them. Now, why is that? When we ask yourself, how can you make a self-sustaining ecosystem that doesn't need a filter? Well, the answer is you need a ton of plants. So the first fish tank hack that I want to share with you is the importance of having live plants. Now, you don't have to have live plants to go filterless. No, you don't have to do that. You want to have live plants so you have a healthier, more sustaining ecosystem within your fish tank to make sure that your fish live the best lives that they can, right? Because these plants, they help draw out all the bad stuff that's in your tank. They help balance it. They help make sure when there is a dying fish or there is dying leaves or something fell on your water or you overfed or you underfed, that this ecosystem that you set up because of plants, they're able to help make that right for you. Because at the end of the day, let's ask ourselves this question. Is it possible to have a self-sustaining ecosystem without any plants? Oh wait, and the answer is no, right? And so if you don't want to make an ecosystem fish tank, that's okay, but just understand that even without an ecosystem fish tank, plants are still extremely beneficial for your aquarium. And that brings me to my next hack, right? You know plants are important, but how do you keep them alive? Well, one, you want to have something in your tank that feeds them, right? And so one of the important factors is having a nutrient-rich substrate. And you got a ton of options for nutrient-rich substrate. Now, do you have to have one? Can you just go gravel or just sand? Yes. Can you opt for root tabs instead? Yes. But I think it's going to make your life a whole lot easier if you get a substrate that just has all the nutrients in it. Now, you can think your ADA, your fluval, there's tons of different kinds of nutrient-rich substrate that you can use, but I personally prefer to use dirt. So you may be asking yourself, all right, so you use dirt, what kind of dirt do you use? And honestly, there's a few ways you can go, right? You can buy the dirt, and you normally want to buy organic potting soil to make sure there's no pesticides or fertilizer, and you can put that inside your fish tank, right? There's lots of different options, but the option that I use, I personally like to use dirt from my own garden. I have an area in my backyard where I compost lawn clippings, leaves, fruits and vegetables, all of that. And over time, that turns into a really good dirt. It's a compost type dirt. And I know that it's good and I know what's in it because I made it, right? And it's great dirt that I can just pull out of the garden area in the back, put it in a cup or a bucket, and then drop it in my tank. And I have full confidence that this thing doesn't have any pesticides, it doesn't have any fertilizers, because I know what I'm putting in my compost out in the garden. Now, if there is one tip I want to give you about a dirted tank or a nutrient-rich tank, is that if you decide to go that route, I suggest that you use a ton of plants at the get-go, because there's so much nutrients in that soil or in that active substrate that you're using that if you do not plant heavy, you're going to have a ton of problems with algae, with diatoms, with ammonia spikes. But if you plant a ton, then you're gonna have the plants that are gonna eat up those extra nutrients. They're gonna grow big and strong, and you're gonna have a really good looking tank. So get yourself a cup of dirt, and you'd be glad that you did. So we talked about a couple fish keeping hacks that go inside of your tank. Let's talk about something that's on the outside of the tank, and that is your light. And the tip here is that you don't have to buy the shiniest light, the best looking light, the one with a million different features. Get yourself a budget light that does the job. In this fish room, I have so many different lights. Some can change to all different colors. Some wake up and go to sleep. Some have timers on them. Some have where you can adjust the brightness. Some have a mood lit feature. They have all these different things. And guess what? I only use one feature on all of my fish tanks. even if they have all these other things that they can do, right? And the feature that I use is turn on and turn off. And so when you're thinking about getting a light, yes, you can be swayed and maybe sold into getting one that does everything under the sun. But when it comes down to it, what are you really gonna use it for? To see your fish and to grow your plants. So hack number 3 is get yourself a light that you know realistically you're gonna use all the features in, right? Now, if you like it where you can change all the different colors and you know that you're gonna use it, right? You just don't think it's cool, but you know, okay, a month later I'm gonna use all these different lights and all these different modes. You know, a year later I know I still will. Then go ahead and spend the money because it's worth it for you. But if you're like me and you know that's cool for like a couple days, but then after that on and off is all I need, then save yourself some money and buy a budget light with just one mode. All right, so fish keeping hack number 4. It took me a while to get into this just because I didn't think about it, but once I did, I have it on every single one of my tanks now, and it's so helpful. And what is it? Well, it is a smart plug that comes with its own app, and I can control when the light comes on just by clicking a button. Light off, light on. And not only can I turn the light on and off whenever I want, it also has a schedule feature where I have this turn on at an exact hour and turn off at an exact hour. And now I never have to remember to turn it on or turn it off. Now, the other cool thing about smart plugs is that you can use it for more than just the light, which I really like. You can also use it to turn off your filter and heaters. So I have a strip plug plugged into a smart plug, and then the filters and heaters are plugged into that strip plug. So when I turn off that one, it turns off all the heaters and it turns off all the filters. Now, when is that useful? Well, when you're doing water changes, you don't want to burn out your heater, right? If the water level gets too low. And you don't want to burn out your filters either whenever you're doing a water change. So it makes it real easy. All I gotta do is click a button. I don't have to label plugs. I don't have to remember which plug is which. I don't have to turn off everything just to turn off those, right? I can keep the light on and just turn off the filter and heater. And it makes it so much easier. And if you're interested in any of the products that I'm talking about, I'm gonna put a link in the description below to Amazon of where I get the products that I use that I like in my fish room. Fish keeping hack number 5 is use filter floss to get crystal clear water. If you guys seen any of my maintenance videos, you know that I love to use filter floss because you don't need to put any chemicals in your water. Now, sometimes you need chemicals, but a lot of the times you just need something that captures all the fine particles that are floating around in your fish tank that make it not crystal clear and make it not look how you like it to look. And filter floss does the trick. Now, what I recommend is you to get a whole sheet of filter floss, right? And it's actually bigger than this. It's actually folded a couple times. So this is like 3 times this size. And all I have to do is cut a little strip about this big and this thick, and I can put it in the filter area, and in a couple hours, the next day, depending on how big my fish tank is, I have crystal clear water, all thanks to filter floss. And you can buy it in bulk, right? And it's easy to store and keep out of the way. I love, love, love filter floss. Now for hack number 6, I actually had this question on one of my fish tank builds. And the question was, why crush coral? And the answer is to buffer pH, right? One thing that I learned about having a planted tank is that organics will slowly lower your pH. And if it gets too low, it can damage your cycle and it can be hurtful for fish if it happens to get into those dangerous low pH levels. And one thing I do to combat that is, well, I like to add crushed coral within all of my tanks. I normally put in an inch of dirt at the bottom, I sprinkle some crushed coral in there, then I cap it with sand or gravel, and we have a very good fish tank where it's being buffered for pH to make sure it doesn't get dangerously low. Now, another option that you have with crushed coral, you can put it in your filter. There's a lot of different places where you can put it, but I like putting it underneath the substrate where the dirt goes as well. Hack number 7 is to put your hands in your fish tanks. I can't tell you how many times I was doing maintenance on my fish tank and I put my hands in there and I was like, whoa, this is pretty cold. And I realized that the heater was dead. Or I looked underneath and I accidentally unplugged the heater for whatever reason, and now they have been living in like 70 degree, 69 degree water. And so there's tons of scenarios and tons of things where I even see on the internet where people were doing a water change or they're messing around in their tank and they felt like little shocks, and they realized that their heater was just malfunctioning and sending a little electrical waves throughout the fish tank. So you can avoid some of these problems of malfunctioning heaters or something going wrong in your fish tank if you just put your hands in there. Now, I did a whole video about this next hack, and I'll put it in the description if you want to watch it. But fish keeping hack number 8 is to prune your dying leaves. And the reason why is because these dying leaves leads to ammonia, nitrate. And all of that will fuel plant growth, obviously. But if that plant's dying, it's not gonna fuel the plant that's dying, so it has to fuel some other kind of plant, and that's gonna be algae, right? And so if you want to eliminate algae, prune your dying plants. Not only will it help keep algae at bay, but it will now allow resources of that plant to grow another leaf or another stem that is healthy and better suited for your water parameters. So if you see dying leaves, go ahead, cut them off. Your fish tank and your plant are gonna be much better for it. Now, for those of you who have nano fish, this is gonna be a really good tip for you. How many times have you seen or had yourself, like, I'm about to go on vacation, what am I gonna do about feeding my fish? Now, depending how long you need, you may not need to do anything. And you got all these kinds of contraptions that you can use, like auto feeders, which I personally use. I think they're great. But one thing I really like that helps in many of my fish tanks that have nano life, right, your nano fish, is leaf litter. I like putting leaf litter in a lot of my tanks. And the reason why is because it helps create bacteria and biofilm and other stuff and little organisms and microfauna that can live underneath it and around it that your fish and shrimp would munch on, and they're gonna love it. And it's gonna help when it comes to vacation time, although that may not be enough, right, on its own, but it's really gonna help. Especially maybe you're just gonna forget a day, right? Having leaf litter in there is still gonna make sure they're more than sufficient, right? And now another tip, if you're thinking about doing leaf litter, is some people do leaf litter because they want tannins in their tank. And tannins is where you have a very deep brown tint to your tank. Some people love that, some people don't. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you can get leaf litter from your backyard that isn't gonna produce a ton of tannins in your tank, right? So if you get the Indian almond leaves, right, you're gonna have a lot of tannins, right? But if you just get everyday maple leaves that's been dried out or oak leaves, you're not gonna get that much tannins unless you just have a ton of them in there. I have leaf litter in a few of my tanks, and none of them are really where you can tell that there's a ton of tannins within the water. There is a slight tint, but you wouldn't really know otherwise unless you've seen a before and after. Now, fish keeping hack number 10 is probably gonna hit a lot of fish keepers here, but how many times have you seen a fish tank that looks like this? That's just covered with food and supplies and cleaning things, and it all takes away from the beauty of this aquarium that you created. And so hack number 10 is really prioritize storage, because it becomes a really big deal as you start to require more of the things that your fish needs. And it can be very difficult to have a clean looking aquarium if you don't have a place for all your stuff. So you gotta make sure that everything has a place. A couple things I want to show you about how I store things, about giving things a place, is this scaping tool block. Now, this is a custom 3D printed block that I made myself to display my scaping tools. And they look great right next to the 20-gallon fish tank. And not only do they have a spot, but they look good, they're well displayed, and I can always find them. Another cool thing is having a good spot for your food. So I custom 3D printed these fish food holders. You may have seen the video, but this holds fish food, and then the fish food cans have this little block
that it can sit into. And now these fish food holders, one, they look good and they look the same and they match, but they also have a spot to where they can be on a stage looking just as beautiful as your fish tank.
There's many ways to make storage for all your fish tank supplies. If you guys are interested in either of these two items, let me know in the comment section. I'm developing a website now, and these two will be ready for sale here very soon. And if you comment below that you're interested, I'll make sure you get a message once these guys are up and going. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video. Thank you guys for watching. And a very important update, I did just launch the membership feature on the channel, so if you're interested in getting some more perks, behind the scene things, consider watching that video and signing up for one of the memberships. And until next time, guys, I'll see you.